Hey, Alane Adams here, and we're back with our Read Along with Alane. We are reading The Blue Witch, which I've said before is one of my favorite books that I've written for kids. Yesterday we read the prologue, where there were a lot of exciting things that happened. You had two riders, Odin and Vor, racing through the woods, and Odin comes across a battle, and they discover a baby in the bushes all hidden, and he says at the end, the prophecy has begun. Until it is completed, we are all in great danger, which is a great way to end the chapter. All right, so today we're going to be beginning with chapter 1. All right, so here we go. All right, Abigail marched toward the iron gates of the Tarkana fortress, holding her chin high. She wasn't going to cry, not today, even though old Nan had tied her braids so tight her scalp stung. The creche wasn't her home anymore. The other girls had been fawned over by proud mothers as they gathered their things and tried on crisp new uniforms. Abigail had sat on her bed, waiting quietly. Honestly, it didn't bother her that she didn't have a mother. A witch didn't have much use for one. Newborn witchlings were left at the creche to be raised by lesser witches like old Nan. Mothers visited 3 times a year, once on promotion day, again on a girl's birthday, and a special visit on Yule Day, when they would bring a small gift and drink cinnamon cocoa by the fire. Those days, Abigail hid in the shadows, watching as the other witchlings glowed under the attention of these strange and powerful creatures. Well, at age 9, witchlings were sent off to the famed Tarkana Witch Academy inside the Coven's walled fortress to be trained in the art of witchery. Abigail came to a stop outside the entrance, gripping her small valise in one hand. Gloomy clouds had gathered in a knot overhead. Her new uniform itched her neck, and she tugged at the collar. All she had to do was take 2 steps, and she would be inside the gates and on her way to becoming a great witch. She tried to slide her foot forward, but it stubbornly remained stuck in place. A pair of girls rushed past, practically flying through the open gates. Glaring down at her foot, Abigail whispered, "Don't be a silly Droopsy Daisy. Today is a new beginning." Her foot wavered in the air like a dowsing rod. But before she could take the step, someone shoved her to the ground. "Out of my way!" a stout-faced witchling bellowed. A lanky girl skulked alongside her. Glorian and Nellie. The two were part of a trio that stuck together like tree sap in summer, which meant, yep. Behind them, a girl sailed along with her nose in the air as if she were royalty. Endera, the most horrible witchling in the entire Tarkana Coven. And Dara paused to smile sweetly down at Abigail. "Aren't you clumsy as a blind sneevel?" The other girls snickered, and the trio swept on through the gates. Abigail picked pebbles out of her torn stockings, biting back tears. They had been friends once, she and Endera, but something had changed. Now, Endera treated Abigail as if she were worm dust. Abigail stood, gripping her valise, and started limping toward the gates when a rumbling growl made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Turning her head to the side, she spied something rustling in the bushes. Something large and hairy. She could just make out a pair of eyes watching her. dark eyes that glowed with malice. Her throat went dry. She couldn't move. If she took another step, she was certain that thing would pounce on her. And then a stern woman with a pointed chin appeared at the gate, beckoning Abigail with long fingers. "Move it along, child, or you'll find yourself locked out until next year." The thing in the bushes quietly retreated, and Abigail could breathe again. She quickly moved inside the gates. A throng of chattering witchlings, all clutching suitcases, were assembled in a courtyard in front of an imposing gray building with Great Hall carved into its headstone. Across the courtyard, an overgrown garden invited exploring, with pebble-lined walking paths that wound through the mass of brambles and trees. Next to the Great Hall, a bronzed sign announced the Tarkana Academy, a maze of low buildings with arched corridors lined with classrooms. Older witchlings hung out of open doors, whispering and staring at the new girls. The stern witch who had bidden Abigail inside climbed the steps of the Great Hall. She turned at the top, her gaze moving slowly over each of them. Silence spread as the girls waited for her to speak. "Welcome, firstlings. I am Madam Vex, head mistress. Make no mistake, this is not the creche. You will not be coddled here. We have assembled the finest teachers to instruct you in the art of witchery. Do well and you will move on. Fail to impress and you will be sent back to the creche." Her eyes fell on Abigail, lingering. Abigail swallowed the lump in her throat as Madam Vex went on. "The witchling with the highest marks on Yule Day will be named head witchling of her class, a great honor that I myself once claimed. Now, before you meet your teachers, let us go over the rules. Rule number 1, no running ever. It is unbecoming a witch. Rule number 2, never go into the swamps outside these walls without permission. A wandering girl could get lost, or worse. Rule number 3, no one is allowed into the dungeons. They have been closed for centuries and are overrun with hungry wraithos." She stepped to the side, and behind her 4 witches of varying ages marched out of the shadows of the Great Hall. Madam Vex extended her arm. "Madam Barbosa will instruct you in your ABCs. Animals, beasts, and creatures." Madam Barbosa wore a flowing gown of multicolored stripes. Her face had a feline look with high cheekbones and slanted eyes. She flared her skirts out and dipped in half curtsy. Madam Vex moved on to a bone-faced woman with not an ounce of cheer. "Madam Marisa will be your spectacular spells instructor." Madam Marisa sniffed a greeting and then snapped her fingers, disappearing in a cloud of purplish smoke. The witchlings all gasped. Up next was a plump witch with a wide stripe of white running through her raven hair. "Madam Radisher will be teaching you positively potent potions," Madam Vex announced. "Welcome, witchlings, welcome!" Madam Radisher waved her hands in the air. Her fingers were covered in dazzling gemstone rings. Last was a wizened hag bent over nearly double. Gnarled hands rested on a 4-legged contraption strung with the bones of tiny animals. The history of witchery will be taught by our eldest member, Madame Grief. The old witch bobbed her head, bearing blackened gums in a toothless smile. The headmistress turned back to the girls and clapped her hands. Pair up and find a partner to room with. Madame Radisha will escort you to the dormitory. You have 1 hour to unpack and then assemble in the dining hall. Quickly, girls, find a match, Madame Radisha trilled. Witchlings scrambled, linking arms and pairing up. Abigail hunted for a friendly face. She spied Minxie, a cross-eyed girl who had sometimes eaten lunch with her back at the creche. Abigail waved, and Minxie began to raise her hand, but Indira stepped in between, shoving Minxie toward another witchling. Abigail let her hand drop. The lawn cleared until she was the only girl left. Madame Radisha put an arm around her shoulder. "Lucky you! The odd girl out gets the attic room," she said brightly. "Perfect fit for one, and you don't have to share." She marched Abigail over to the dormitory tower, a tall, round building with bands of ivy wrapped around grey stone. They ducked through a low door and entered the main room. Bookshelves crammed with thick tomes lined the walls. A couple of low sofas and tables were occupied by older girls studying. In the center of the room, a narrow set of spiral stairs led to the upper floors. "Top of the stairs, dear. You can't miss it." Madame Radisha gave Abigail a gentle shove. Abigail dragged her valise up floor after floor, ignoring the giggling girls who ran room to room, shouting out dibs. At the top, she pushed open a narrow door. The room was dusty and lined with cobwebs. It held a small iron bed, a rickety desk, and a pile of bedding. She set her valise down and began to unpack, thinking about that beast in the shrubs. It might have been a Shankara. The fearsome black wolves roamed the woods on Balfour Island. Thankfully, she was safe inside the walls of the Tarkana fortress. Nothing could get to her in here. Well, that's the end of the first chapter. What did you guys think? I like that chapter so much. We get to meet our main character, who we call the protagonist, right? And in this case, our main character is this 9-year-old witchling named Abigail. And it's her first day at the Tarkana Witch Academy. And she's really excited, but I think she's also really nervous, right? She doesn't really know, I think, what to expect. Has that ever happened to you? Has it ever been, I don't know, like your first day at something, maybe a summer camp, or your first day of school, or first day of joining a club or something, and you just don't know what's going to happen? And I think she's a little bit nervous. And we also learned, right, that she doesn't have a mother. And now it's okay, I guess she says, because witches don't have much use for mothers. They only see them a few times a year, but I imagine it's hard not to have a mother. Now she's just outside the entrance to the academy, and she really wants to go in, but her foot just won't move. And then what happens? Her nemesis, Indira, only the worst witch in the Tarkana Witch Academy, shows up and kind of bullies her a little bit. And I don't like bullying, do you? It's my least favorite thing, but Indira is picking on her. And the sad thing is, Abigail remembers that they had once been friends, and I suppose that's even more sad for her. So Abigail goes in, and all of a sudden, before she can get through the gates, she hears something rustling. She hears that growl, and eyes are watching her, eyes that glowed with malice. I love the word malice. It means, like, I don't know, bad intentions, right? Sort of evil. I love using that word in the text. So she goes in and she meets some of her teachers. She meets Madame Barbosa, she meets Madame Radisha and Madame Marisa, and of course the headmistress, Madame Vex, right? It was so fun for me as an author coming up with the names for classes like spectacular spells and positively potent potions, right? And then Abigail is supposed to pair up, but she doesn't find a friend to be a roommate with. Now that's a little bit rough. Don't you think she'd be happier if she had a roommate? Probably a little bit easier, but she's going to be in her own room there at the top of the dormitory tower. And she ends the chapter by thinking back about that beast or creature that was in the bushes. And what does she think to herself? Thankfully, she was safe inside the walls of the Tarkana fortress. Nothing could get to her in here. Oh, I wonder if that's true. We'll just have to find out. Stay tuned, all right? Tune back again for another reading of chapter 2, which we'll post again tomorrow. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so you guys can keep track of everything going on. And in between, guys, make sure you're downloading the worksheets. We're putting up all kinds of worksheets. We're always adding new ones so that you can be doing some work and learning more about what's going on inside the pages. And otherwise, we'll see you back here again tomorrow. And in the meantime, stay well, stay healthy, wash your hands, and do a lot of reading, all right? Take care, guys. Alane out.